Flood alerts are currently active in sections of Ohio and southwestern Pennsylvania, with the National Weather Service confirming that flooding has already begun affecting the region. Multiple counties have shut down roadways in response to the flooding, and forecasters caution that conditions are expected to worsen further as the day progresses. This event is shaping up as a multi-day stretch of severe weather affecting millions of people across a corridor stretching from Illinois to West Virginia, with hazardous conditions already developing on the ground. The Weather Prediction Center has placed the area under a moderate risk for excessive rainfall, a level 3 out of 4 on its severity scale. The Storm Prediction Center has also issued an enhanced risk for severe thunderstorms, level 3 out of 5. Having both of these elevated alerts in effect simultaneously for the same area and the same day is a rare occurrence. Let's break down what's happening. I'm going to walk you through exactly what's unfolding, where the biggest dangers lie, and what steps you should take. Today is Tuesday, the 11th of August, 2026, and we're monitoring a genuinely hazardous weather system. At the heart of this setup is a cold front that's barely moving, and that sluggishness is the key detail. A front that stalls doesn't just deliver a single burst of storms and move on. It sits in place and continues generating storm after storm over the same stretch of ground. Meteorologists refer to this as training, like boxcars rolling along the same rail line one behind the other. Each cell dumps an inch or two of rain, then another follows right on its heels. Making matters worse, the soil is already waterlogged from a weekend of heavy rainfall across Indiana, Ohio, and West Virginia. Roughly 1 to 2 inches soaked in before today's system even arrived. That means even modest rainfall now could set off flash flooding almost instantly, since the ground simply can't absorb anymore. Add to that atmospheric moisture levels, precipitable water, exceeding 2 inches across the region, which is unusually high for August. Combine that with Gulf moisture flowing in from the south, and you've got the recipe for extreme rainfall intensity. The Weather Prediction Center is forecasting rainfall rates of 1 to 3 inches per hour within the strongest cells, with isolated totals potentially reaching 5 to 6 inches by the time the system clears out. Let's start with the flood warnings currently in place. Let's start with the most pressing alerts. Flooding is already underway in southeastern Ohio, where the National Weather Service office in Charleston has issued flood warnings covering Athens, Morgan, Perry, and Washington counties. Overnight totals ranged from 2 to 5 inches, and flooding is currently affecting Crooksville and McConnellsville, along with Zanesville and Somerset. Anyone in these areas should avoid driving through the affected zones entirely. Muskingum County, Ohio has also been placed under a flood warning after seeing similar rainfall totals of 2 to 5 inches. Roseville has multiple road closures, and Zanesville is experiencing serious flooding effects. I want to make this point clearly, and I'll repeat it throughout: turn around, don't drown. This isn't just a memorable slogan the National Weather Service uses. It reflects reality. The majority of flood-related fatalities in the U.S. occur inside vehicles. Not some, most. Just 6 inches of swiftly moving water is enough to sweep a person off their feet. 12 inches can sweep away a small car, and 2 feet of water can lift and float even a full-size vehicle. If you encounter water covering the roadway, don't proceed. Stop and turn around. Shifting to the Pennsylvania-West Virginia border, the NWS Pittsburgh office has a flood warning in effect for Fayette and Westmoreland counties in southwestern Pennsylvania, as well as Preston County in northeastern West Virginia. Rainfall totals of 5 to 4 inches have already come down in that area, with Uniontown among the affected locations. Connellsville, Seven Springs, and the Ohiopyle State Park area are also being impacted, with stream and creek flooding occurring throughout the region right now. While these particular warnings are set to expire around 9 a.m. this morning, additional rainfall is expected later in the day. Now let's move on to the flood watches, and there's no shortage of them across this region. West Virginia is where I want to focus first, since it's honestly the state that concerns me most today. NWS Charleston has issued a flood watch spanning roughly 40 counties statewide, and this isn't a short-term alert. It extends all the way through Friday morning, August 14th, making it the longest-running flood watch tied to this entire event, 3 consecutive days of flood risk. Charleston, Huntington, Parkersburg, Clarksburg, Elkins, Beckley, Morgantown, and Wheeling are all included. Notably, the Weather Prediction Center specifically flagged West Virginia in this morning's official forecast discussion, citing the state's especially flashy terrain and river systems. In practical terms, that means West Virginia's steep mountains and narrow valleys funnel water downhill at extreme speed. Conditions can look completely dry in a town while a surge of water is already rushing down from a ridge just miles away. Given the state's painful history with flood disasters, this week's setup is being taken very seriously. Turning to Ohio, NWS Wilmington has a flood watch in place across more than 50 counties, encompassing Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton, Springfield, Chillicothe, Lancaster, and Portsmouth. A massive footprint that remains active through Wednesday morning. An additional 1 to 3 inches of rain is expected on top of already saturated soil. Meanwhile, NWS Cleveland has issued a fresh flood watch for northern and northeastern Ohio, covering Cleveland, Akron, Toledo, Canton, and Lorain. That watch begins at 11 a.m. EDT today, meaning residents throughout the greater Cleveland area need to stay alert this afternoon and evening as well. Further south, NWS Jackson has flood watches posted for more than 25 counties across eastern Kentucky. Hazard, Pikeville, Prestonsburg, Whitesburg, Jackson, Harlan, Middlesboro, and Paintsville are all included in the watch, as a series of storm systems is expected to move through the area, bringing heavy downpours and repeated training storms. Additionally, NWS Louisville has issued a brand new flood watch for central Kentucky taking effect at noon today. This one covers Lexington, Frankfort, Winchester, Richmond, Georgetown, Paris, and Nicholasville, several major population centers, and also extends into Jefferson County, Indiana, so residents just across the river from Louisville should stay alert as well. Heading north to Indiana, NWS Indianapolis has issued a flood watch covering much of the central part of the state. Indianapolis, Lafayette, Kokomo, Muncie, Anderson, Carmel, Noblesville, and Greenwood are all included. Multiple rounds of storms are anticipated this afternoon and evening, with isolated rainfall totals of 2 to 4 inches possible. Separately, NWS Northern Indiana has its own flood watch covering northern Indiana and northwest Ohio. Elkhart, South Bend, Fort Wayne, and the Toledo area are covered under this watch, which is active from 11 a.m. through this evening. Rainfall rates of 1 to 2 inches per hour are possible with the stronger storms expected this afternoon. I'll also flag southwestern Pennsylvania. NWS Pittsburgh has issued a flood watch for the broader region, which includes Brooke and Hancock counties in northern West Virginia. Weirton and Wellsburg fall within this area, along with Carroll and Jefferson counties in eastern Ohio, including the Steubenville area and southwestern Pennsylvania's Greene County, with soil already saturated, even 1 to 1. 5 additional inches of rain could set off dangerous flash flooding. There's a separate Pittsburgh-issued watch covering interior West Virginia as well. Marion, Marshall, Monongalia, and Ohio counties, meaning Morgantown, Wheeling, Fairmont, and Moundsville, plus Preston and Tucker counties in the Canaan Valley area. Farther east, NWS Blacksburg, Virginia has a flood watch running through Thursday morning that covers southeastern West Virginia, including Mercer, Monroe, Summers, and Greenbrier counties. Bluefield, Lewisburg, Hinton, White Sulphur Springs, and Ranson are all part of that watch. It also stretches across a large section of southwest Virginia, encompassing Roanoke, Blacksburg, Tazewell, Giles, and Montgomery counties, and reaches into northwest North Carolina, where Ashe, Allegheny, and Watauga counties are included. That's because this system is expected to push heavy rain bands into the southern Appalachians as well. Worth noting, too, Garrett County in western Maryland is now under a new flood watch through early Wednesday, and Somerset County in southwestern Pennsylvania has its own flood watch in effect through tonight. Now let's turn to the severe thunderstorm threat, because that's the other major story today. The Storm Prediction Center, SPC, based in Norman, Oklahoma, has issued an enhanced risk for today. The enhanced risk category sits at level 3 out of 5, and it's a serious designation. It spans a corridor stretching from northern Illinois, across Indiana, and into the Ohio Valley. The main threat here is damaging wind gusts, and when SPC uses the word damaging, they're referring to gusts potentially topping 75 miles per hour, strong enough to uproot large trees, sever power lines, and inflict structural damage on buildings. The core danger stems from what meteorologists call an MCS, a mesoscale convective system. Picture it as a large, organized cluster of thunderstorms functioning together like a single massive weather engine. These systems can sustain 75 miles per hour winds across a swath hundreds of miles wide. When they take on a curved shape, forecasters call it a bow echo, and that's when wind speeds reach their most extreme levels. The SPC is specifically flagging 700 millibar winds exceeding 60 knots, roughly 70 miles per hour at altitude. When upper-level winds are that strong during August, they can get transported down to ground level within these storms, which is exactly why this MCS setup is so concerning. The wind shear present is unusually strong for this time of year. The Storm Prediction Center itself described this as a genuinely complicated forecast situation, noting the possibility of multiple MCS systems developing simultaneously across the region today, one forming over Iowa and southern Minnesota in the morning hours. That system in particular could evolve into the most significant threat as it tracks southeast through Indiana and Ohio later in the day, tapping into rich Gulf moisture along the way. That moisture will essentially fuel the storm complex, intensifying it as it crosses the Ohio Valley. Timing matters a lot here, so let me walk through the day hour by hour. Right now, in the early morning, we're seeing the aftermath of overnight storms in the form of active flood warnings. As we move into mid-morning, there will likely be a temporary lull in storm activity across parts of the region. But don't be misled by that quiet stretch. The atmosphere is essentially building energy for what comes next. Between noon and 3 p.m. Eastern, flood watches take effect across northern Ohio and central Indiana, and new storm development will begin along the frontal boundary during early afternoon. The stretch that concerns me most is 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern. This is the primary threat window for the day, when severe storms, flash flooding, and damaging winds all overlap across a 6 to 8 hour span. The late afternoon period, roughly 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., is when a major MC's impact becomes most probable. This time frame was echoed by a meteorologist with the WSLS Weather Authority team in their afternoon forecast discussion. If you've got outdoor plans today in Indiana, Ohio, or West Virginia, this is the moment to rethink them. Moving into evening and overnight hours, the storm system pushes east through the Appalachians toward Virginia, extending the damaging wind threat into the mid-Atlantic. Washington, D.C. and Baltimore should stay alert. The excessive rainfall slight risk zone has actually been expanded to include the Richmond-Baltimore C corridor, driven by global model guidance showing a heavy rainfall signal developing near the I-95 corridor overnight. Anyone in the greater D.C. metro, Baltimore area, or Northern Virginia should keep an eye on conditions tonight. Now, looking ahead to Wednesday, August 12th, this system isn't wrapping up in a single day. The Weather Prediction Center continues to maintain a slight risk for excessive rainfall on Wednesday. That same Ohio Valley corridor remains the focal point, with more rounds of heavy rain and training storms possible. Ground that's already saturated Tuesday will only be more so by Wednesday, leaving even less capacity to absorb additional rainfall each passing day. The Storm Prediction Center is also keeping a slight risk for severe thunderstorms in place for Wednesday across the same region, with damaging gusts and isolated hail still on the table. The frontal boundary is proving stubborn and isn't moving much. A lot depends on how much atmospheric energy gets consumed by today's storms. That's really the central uncertainty heading into Wednesday's round. Looking further out, Thursday into Friday, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Virginia remain under an elevated flood threat. That statewide West Virginia flood watch, as mentioned, runs through Friday morning, while the watch covering southwest Virginia and southeastern West Virginia extends through Thursday morning. NWS Blacksburg's official statement warned that repeated rounds of thunderstorms moving through an unusually moist air mass will keep flash flooding a concern over several days. Their words, not mine. Several days, not ours. If you're in West Virginia, Kentucky, or southwestern Virginia, please don't brush this off. This is the National Weather Service issuing multi-day flood watches for your area. That's not exaggeration. I want to spend a moment specifically on West Virginia because it deserves special attention. It's among the most flood-vulnerable states in the country, largely due to its terrain. Narrow valleys and hollows, locally called hollers, funnel runoff directly into streams and creeks, which can rise several feet within minutes following heavy rain upstream. A creek bed that looks completely dry could become a violent torrent in under half an hour. That's the reality of flooding in West Virginia. The state endured catastrophic flooding in June 2016 that claimed 23 lives, a sobering piece of history. More recently, flooding in July 2026, just weeks ago, triggered a state of emergency across all 55 counties, prompting National Guard deployment and water rescue operations, with record-breaking totals recorded in Upshur County. The ground from that event never fully dried out, and now another major rain event is moving in. If you live in the Canaan Valley, the Coal River Valley, or the Gauley River Basin, please take this seriously. Know your evacuation routes in advance. Keep your phone charged, identify nearby high ground, and if an evacuation order is issued for your area, leave immediately. Don't wait to gauge how severe things become. For real-time road closures and travel conditions, check West Virginia's 511 site at wv511.org. To report flooding safely to the National Weather Service, call 1-804-19-5535. Now let's address power outages, since that's a serious concern tied to today's damaging winds. When an MC carrying 75 miles per hour gusts moves across the Midwest and Ohio Valley, trees and power lines go down in its path, meaning hundreds of thousands of customers could potentially lose power. During last Monday's storms, more than 100,000 customers across Kentucky, Ohio, and New Jersey lost power. Given today's enhanced risk designation from the SPC, this event has the potential to cause even broader outages. So here's what you should do right now. Charge your phones and any backup battery packs, fill your gas tank before the afternoon rush of storms, and make sure you have flashlights with fresh batteries on hand. If anyone in your household relies on electricity-dependent medical equipment, have a backup plan in place. And please check on elderly neighbors or family members before the storms roll in this afternoon. I also want to touch on travel conditions across the major interstates today, because this matters. I-70 through central Ohio, from Columbus to the West Virginia border, faces a high combined flood and storm risk. I-77, running from Cleveland south through Akron and Canton into West Virginia, carries multiple hazards. I-79, the primary north-south route through West Virginia connecting Pittsburgh to Charleston, needs close monitoring. I-64 across southern West Virginia into Kentucky carries a very high flooding risk, and U.S. Route 119 in West Virginia has already been specifically named in flash flood warnings issued this week. If your travel plans take you through any of these areas today, check conditions beforehand, build in extra time, and if you come across water covering the road, do not attempt to drive through it, turn around instead. Just 2 feet of fast-moving water can sweep away most full-size vehicles. It's simply not worth the risk. I'll be back tomorrow with an updated forecast as we see how today's storms develop overnight into Wednesday. This is very much a still evolving situation, and there's some remaining uncertainty in the models regarding Wednesday's exact setup. We'll continue tracking any shifts in the moderate or slight risk zones and keep you posted. If a significant new threat develops, I'll get an update out right away, so keep your notifications on. This is the kind of event where checking the forecast just once in the morning won't cut it. Conditions can shift fast. An area that's dry at 10 a.m. could be underwater by 4 p.m. That's simply how these slow-moving frontal systems with training storms behave. Stay tuned throughout the day. If this forecast was useful to you, consider liking and subscribing, and turn on notifications so you don't miss updates as this event continues to unfold. Please share this with anyone you know in Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, or southwestern Pennsylvania. They need this information. Sharing weather updates during events like this can genuinely make a difference. That wraps up today's forecast. I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe out there, everyone. And remember, if you see water on the road, turn around, don't drown.